Welcome to Quest, where we discuss and dissect culture directly from the West Coast.
Join us in our quest for knowledge and understanding. Let's see where it takes us today. And we're live. So what have you been up to, buddy? What's going on?
Well, I just took my first road trip post-COVID or during COVID. So I traveled up to Spoulos to see my lady's family and get some nature in my life again. So we did some hiking, a couple different trails up in Pismo Preserves, a couple different hikes to one of the tallest peaks in San Luis Obispo, where you could see the seven peaks, or like they call them the Seven Sisters, and they're all former, what did her dad say? They were volcanic. I can't think of the name of it, but they weren't so much volcanoes.
What kind of rock are they? Are they granite?
It's all volcanic. I mean, I don't know the specifics on that.
I was about to say,
basically what happened.
Geography of California.
Was formed.
Yeah?
Yeah, so the whole valley was being formed. Basically, it shot out a bunch of different peaks. And so Morro Rock in Morro Bay is one of those peaks. And then it goes all the way into San Luis Obispo.
Oh, wow.
It's this super cool chain, and then you can see it. So for the peak that we were at when we first got in, you could see all seven, and her dad's this mad historian of everything. And so he's like, oh yeah, this is this, and this is the history of that, and we're like, how do you know so much? And I was like, man, it made me laugh and think of you when it came to anything about music. We're like, oh yeah, well he was making the song and his sister had died, and it really informed him. I'm like, how do you know this?
I think that's what, if you have a passion about something, and I'm sure he's genuinely interested for some weird reason. I don't know what it might be,
who knows?
But he's interested
why is anyone?
Yeah, exactly. That's not for you to decide, but it's you eventually get interested in some kind of topic, and you are a resource, and because you care about it, you are your own critic as to your level of knowledge, and you could very well estimate where you are in terms of everyone else. And I'm sure that for him, he's actually you know what, let me watch a documentary or two, or let me figure out what this is about, or anything really. It doesn't really matter, but you could learn a lot about something that you're interested in. And for him, I guess, where is he from originally? Do you know very much about him at all?
Yeah, or? I mean, his dad's, I guess, or her dad's from San Diego, then Santa Cruz, and then they end up Walnut Creek. Okay,
so he's from California, so that makes sense why he's super interested in where he is. Because I mean, at this point, what else are you gonna get into? If
yeah, I mean, so a little bit about that, and that's what I've been up to pretty much for the last week. It was super nice. Had my first date with my girlfriend since we've been together in 3 months.
Oh man, we were talking about that yesterday. That was it was one of the first times.
A week, or no, we started talking a week prior to COVID, and then created the relationship we have. But we're laughing maybe midway through COVID, we've really never gone on a first date. I was oh yeah, we kind of hung out, we did those things, but as a fun getting dressed up and just going out and having dinner or drinks and just enjoying a day or a night. We really never did that because we're just so inside. And obviously it helped because it brought what could have been 6 months to 3 months in terms of dating experience and getting to know another person. But we went up to Paso Robles and did a wine tasting, which I got that sweet baby Jesus industry discount.
I was about to say, so as a connoisseur or a person that knows a lot yourself about wine, were you teaching her a lot more, or did she already have an appreciation for wine before you even started talking to her?
Oh, dude, that's part where the love comes from. She
Ah,
does have that.
I see. All right, so you guys are just playing around in a playground at that point because you just have all different types of wine at your disposal.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, her dad has a sweet indoor wine cellar. That was probably close to 300 bottles. So that was fun. That was fun to play with.
Yeah, that reminds me of okay, so I haven't watched it, but Picard is this show that's on CBS and all that kind of stuff. They have their own television programming for the internet. But Picard is a French space naval captain or galactic captain, whatever. I haven't watched enough Star Trek to really truly know. But
I don't think he was French.
No, he is French. Picard.
He is French.
Yeah. Jean Picard. I mean, his name is French.
I always thought he was the English guy.
Nah, well, that's because of gosh, why am I forgetting the name of Professor X? Anyway, Picard is a French. He has his own French label of wine, and he retires to his winery in France, and that's his family label, and that's how he makes money in his retirement from the Enterprise. And it's a really interesting background on the gentleman's life that has.
Dude, that would have been such a way more chill life than getting shot at by aliens.
No, because that's your stoic rest away at the end of your galactic journeys. Is that all right? Now I'm going to focus on my family label of wine. We've been doing this for generations, and I'm just going to continue the family business. And for the French, I know it's a genuine pastime for people like that. There's really a respect for the culture that is. Making wine and selling wine and everything.
Just as much as hamburgers and fucking Coke is for America, wine is for France.
I guess, yeah, in terms of the level of consumption and how serious people take it.
I mean, consumption in industry, bro. That they export so much wine to the rest of the world. They are still the number one exporters of wine. Because they have 5 major wine regions that all have a unique style. And there's just my grandfather did it, and his grandfather did it, and his grandfather did it, because they're French and there's never going to be a woman. And so maybe there's a woman now, but
I was about to say, the French
not.
Actually, if anything, there's probably going to be a woman at some point. I mean, they're very progressive. I was actually just reading the Declarations of Rights of Man. I've been watching a lot of French news lately because I'm trying to see around the world how different people are coping with the pandemic and stuff. And I was looking at France, and they have not only do they have a fashion thing going on with the different types of masks that people wear, but there's an actual emphasis on how do I describe it? What the country is going to be like and how things are going to the culture itself is going to shape into the future. And one of the things that they were looking at, I was looking at to try to understand that more, is what their political system is really based on. Because I know here in the United States, we have the Constitution and what we look at for our cultural values as a country. And I was all right, well, after the French Revolution, because they were the other people that have a revolution. I think it was, I forgot who was first. It was the United States in 1776. And then the French Revolution was right afterward. And they had a whole different idea on what, founding a country and liberty is. Are you eating?
You've got a mouthful of diamonds and a pocket full of secrets.
Comic book and guns. Comic books and guns. Watching power, living belly. Ghost like Tommy Bun. I'ma conquer with that vision. Bet my time gon' come. I'm Tetsuo with a Tommy gun. Paparazzi papa, where my mommy from. Probably in the lobby with my posse drunk. Sipping on Bacardi, take a shot of rum. Pissing in the elevator, still don't give a fuck. Gold grill, black man, still ain't switching up. Remember niggas called me Diddy, I was wreaking havoc. Threw the Glock up in the river, it was too dramatic. I'm a shooter, fuck my sneaker fashion. Fantasizing about a week on ads and spazzing when the reefer passing.
In terms of our whole segment of the L squared, I do have
Provide.
So we'll start with uh, we'll, we'll start with Jack Carr. So Jack Carr is a former Navy SEAL. I think I might have discussed it on the podcast before, but he was on Rogan. I listened to his story. He's talking about this character of James Reese and how he designed him, and how a lot of it takes a lot of reference from his own past life and being downfield or downline, and basically creating this whole character. And he's kind of set up these right now. I think he's working on the fourth, and it might be coming out. But right now, I believe there's only three. And that first book is about a man's drive for revenge, and how he gets to. It's called the terminal list of. He knows he's about to die, and he has about maybe 10, 11 names of people he feels he needs to kill before he dies, that basically wronged him, wronged him and took away his family and his men. And then you transition to his second book of redemption, and a man who's broken, realizing that he's not going to die, that there is a chance. And how does he come back from basically become this animal and almost an insurgent of what he fought against, and how he finds that character struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And their third book, I kind of think it's about human character and human development, where now he is recovering. He's trying to live his best life, and another man has seeked out revenge against him, and for basically destroying a path that he wanted to do, but it was not the right path. And he gets mixed in with the Russian mafia, and there's a character in there that likes to hunt men. So if you ever read the book, The Most Dangerous Game,
like Craven Craven the Hunter from Spider-Man.
Sure, or
sorry, I'm
the 1920s book. I think it's like the Most Dangerous Game.
I'm not familiar, but I guess the concept makes sense.
Yeah, so the concept of the book is basically there's a man who wakes up on an island, and this rich and powerful man is hunting him. And he has
scary.
to and because man is the most dangerous game, because critical thinking, and also gets scared, but then also maybe he might be able to get you, and he has logic.
It's not a
reason.
It's not a mere beast I am hunting.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's some dark stuff. That's weird.
Yeah, and that's how the book really gets into that, of the psyche of a man who seemed to be broken as a child, who basically became a serial killer. But because he was in the Russian mafia, and also was part of Russia's secret police and high up, he basically was untouchable and allowed this disease that he had to basically go unchecked, and become such a terrible person. And at the end of the book, it's basically about a hunter versus a killer. One man, James Reese, is the hunter, and one man is a killer who believes he's a hunter. And that dynamic of, I'm coming after you because you've wrongly done something to me that is so horrific that there is no way to apologize for it. But the guy who reads the books is just, dude, he just puts you so well into the book that I literally am listening to it as I'm driving or at home playing some video games, and I'm so deep involved into the story. And I don't feel like I would be like that for me personally if I was just reading. It would take me way longer to get through these books. But hearing somebody, I have such a better of a imagination of listening and trying to put myself okay, and just being part of that story. And it's man, I haven't read books or listened to books in probably 4 years, and it's just been the best month and a half. It's awesome. I feel it's really gonna get me into listening to a lot more audiobooks on different things, and it's been really fun to kind of get back into that.
I totally understand that. I mean, I've always been that way. I've always been an audible or auditory learner, or whatever that is, where if I listen to somebody discuss it, or if I listen to a lecture or a speech or anything like that, I respond better to verbal communication. So whenever something is read out loud, or I have to read something out loud to myself, because I know for a fact I read out loud to myself when I'm reading books at home, because
I'll do that too.
Yeah, and I don't care, because if I'm by myself, I don't plus it helps me talk better anyway, is that I'm using other people's words. But it provides my head with something that works for me, and I think language is important for that very reason, because it works like a spell, because you're literally converting your thoughts into vocal patterns and trying to get those vocal patterns into another person's head. Like I don't it's definitely science, but for all intents and purposes it's magic. Because you want to convey your ideas.
No, 100%. I mean, it's, because nobody knows you better than you. So it's like when you say it, you're like, wait, that didn't sound right. Like, I gotta go back.
Exactly. So when you're listening to a book on tape or anything like that, then there's a different response you have, because it's like somebody's talking to you. And if you respond well to people having a conversation with you, then you're going to resonate with it differently than some people are better learners when it's being displayed or there's pictures or something like that, or even just written down pen to paper, is that the written word works better for some people. And honestly, written word is probably the most effective way to get your communication across in the first place, which is why it's important. But
100%.
Do you have a physical copy of the book?
I do not.
So you're purely just listening to it.
Just listening, just being the story. I mean, we can't really go to the movies, and it's literally I've been listening and like been invested in like this movie, or like when Game of Thrones, or not Game of Thrones, when HBO comes out with their 10-part series, and you're just like okay, imagine the way I can kind of make it equal to like for you is when you watched all 10 episodes of Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
And you like the description of these men, and you see the grit, and you're so invested in the characters. That's how I feel listening to the book, because the author is so well written, or the book is so well written, that the author addresses every little detail that you would never really think about, but it adds so much to the development of the character and what the character is wearing, and his motivations and the thought processes and the setting and how chilly it is, and the breath, and there's just so much things. You're like, you just feel that I'm not seeing anything, I'm listening and hearing a movie.
Absolutely.
And it's been really fun. I mean, it's just so much of a different way to get invested, but it all happens if you don't have a good recording artist narrating the book. I probably wouldn't be so much into it if you had a guy who was a little bit more monotone and not as enthusiastic, and who didn't create voices for every individual character. Then you'd be like, it was a good book, but I probably wouldn't get it past the first book. But because the guy who's narrating everything switches voices just ever so slightly, does a woman's voice and then does another woman's voice, but changes it slightly and gives it a slight accent. And then we're talking about different people around the world, and they have their accents. And it's very close to what those people's accents really sounds like. So you're just so much more involved, and it really, I think you could tie that in the podcast, at least for me.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't way the people sound. I'm like, I'm probably going to turn away, even though it might be interesting. It's going to be a lot harder for me to process, and like, I really want to listen to what they have to say.
You have to really prove your level of interest for you to actually continue if the audio quality is not good.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with listening to rap for me, which kind of segues into this next listening elsewhere.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. Okay. I'll get into my L squared later, because I think I know exactly where I'm gonna go with mine. Because I was gonna talk about comic books anyway, but I have another where to go. But continue. What you were listening to? J Rock, is that who this is?
Yeah, J Rock. So I sent you the link to the lyrics. So if you want to add in later on into the podcast,
yeah, no doubt,
a little bit of the song, kind of like what we did with the other song with our boy. But there's just a few things I was listening to it on my ride home. Not my ride home. My ride to go surfing this morning, because I haven't listened to this particular song from J Rock in just quite a minute. And,
yeah, rotation 112.
And I think with everything going on and going through, and really when you look at all the verses, it's, I think, a really good picture of some of the environments of everything going on with some of the Black Lives Matter, and some of the people that are in these neighborhoods that are dealing with police are dealing, maybe not doing a little bit of things illegally or illicit, but like kind of the mindset of some people.
I got the drink, I got the smoking rotation. Head on a swivel rotation. I got the back door swinging rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation. I got the drink, I got the smoking rotation. Head on a swivel rotation. I got the back door swinging rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation. 112th Street, Deuce Line, tell a friend, parking lots, dope spots, hard rock, come again, duke it out or shoot it out, fuck her out, who was him, pack him out or stall him out, we need to find out where he live, GTA's, 211s, double dutching, Mac 11, Section 8, welfare, EBTs on the dresser, crash dummies, real killers, fast money, kill niggas, blast for me, real nigga, ask for me, deal with you, pay it fair, play it fair, here's a scale, way ahead, kick a door, here a choke, take it all, hit the stairs, yellow bricks, pedal bricks, get an ounce, get a zip, shotty bounce, hit his hip, make that body do a flip. I'm a vet, I'm a rep, I'm a boss, I'm a flex, I'm a turn up for the set. Take this bottle to the neck. Pre-rolls for the hoes, no licks for the homies. 500 for the case, share it with the members only. I got the drink, I got the smoking rotation. Head on a swivel rotation. I got the back door swinging rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation. If it's wall, double back in rotation.
So like the first couple things that like stand out to me, and he's talking about, I got my drink and my smoke in rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Head on a swivel rotation. I got the back door swing in rotation. If it's a ward, double back rotation. And so he's going into that, and he's talking about, if you're kind of chilling with the homies, and because I've known people that so much of this life I was never part of, but I know friends that were very much like involved. And it's like, yeah, no, I've been in that part where I have, been in a circle smoking and drinking, and there might be somebody in that group that is slinging. It wasn't so much crack or fucking coke, but like be weed or something.
Yeah,
but you
absolutely.
never know. Like you always kind of had to keep your head on rotation. Like okay, like cops or people trying to fucking jump you, and just be like, okay, well we're in the middle of the night. We're at a place where not the most sketchy, but you always gotta check like what's going on. But then this first verse, he's just addressing kind of everything that's kind of going on of duke it out, shoot it out, fucking op, which probably talking about a cop.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he's talking about parking lots, dope spots, and hard rock.
Op is generally a term that could be used for either one. I can see in some situations it could be cop, but most of the time op really just means opposition to who you are. So if he's a blood, it might be a crip, or if he's
that's keep that head on swivel.
Yeah, exactly. Like opposition could be anybody trying to negatively affect or negatively impact your life.
Right.
And that could be a more broad word or have a broader definition than just that. But
and I think
it applies to everybody.
The greatness of a good verse
or slang
or bars or whatever that the way you can utilize different words, especially, and I've learned this a lot from you, is when you, because I listen to it mainly just listening like, oh, it's a sick beat.
Mm-hmm.
But every once in a while there's a song I'm like, oh, there's something there, but like I gotta go back and I want to actually read line by line of what this guy's saying.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes I think you get so lost in almost as like a hypnotic aspect
that's
you're
that
so
spell
much into the flow.
It's the magic I was just telling you about.
And you're like, oh, let me just kind of go back and look into it. And I knew that we were recording today, so I was like, okay, I want to kind of just kind of go a little bit into it and see like what he's talking about. And he basically goes in and like, basically I got my set list of, I have my gun, I have my gun, I'm ready to basically blast, and like if someone comes after me, I'm gonna kill people.
Mm-hmm.
I got my deal, make some money, quick money. I got my scale, I got weight, and then it breaks into like kick of the door, head choke, take it all in, hit the stairs. So okay, now they're breaking into his place. They found out yellow bricks, pedal bricks got announced in a Ziploc bag. Shorty bounce, hit the hips, make me that bounce, do a flip. I'm a vet. I'm a rep. I'm a boss. I'm a flex. And so it's just kind of interesting. It's just, hey, I'm gonna give you an idea of probably like we're talking about with Jack Carr of his experience being a SEAL and like transition to a character. It's the same, same thing of this is probably the life he experienced or, he's seen or he was part of. And, it just gives it, the song a little bit more connection to like if you have an experience, how way you can write things because you have so much more invested.
Invested personally. Yeah, and there's local and individual ownership over the words that you use, and those words might be just local slang, or those stories might be something that everybody knows about, or something, and that connects with people, and that legitimacy is what makes it so broad in terms of the way people can connect with it.
Yeah, and I think it makes him so much more real. I mean, in that life of probably like, yeah, he probably wasn't pretending to do this, and that makes him a little more authentic in the words that he says, and I believe what he has to say, and I think it makes for a better song versus maybe some of these SoundCloud guys that maybe rap about certain things, or people who never had experienced these things, and then it's like, you know what, I just don't take you seriously what you're saying, and like.
Well, it depends on what you hold them accountable to. Because like for me, for example, I hold them accountable to the authenticity of the emotions that they're feeling.
Right.
And those emotions might be expressed via the lyrics. And sometimes those emotions are directly expressed through the lyrics, and they're authentic as well. Like if some rapper wants to talk about getting money and having sex with a lot of women, I mean,
authenticity.
Yeah, man. I mean, you sent me that link about Lil Pump earlier, and
it was J. Cole.
Yeah, and how like we predicted that yada 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 would what's it called? He would fall off or whatever. And
because they had such a little like tissel.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, all right, well, I don't know if his purpose was to be the best rapper in the world or anything like that. I have no doubt in my mind when concerts start opening up and everything again, Lil Pump will be able to go on tour and do whatever he wants because he has those fans that were fans of him. They were like 13 and 14 when he was doing stuff. And then now that he's like 19 and 20, those 13 and 14 year olds are like 18 and 19 and have their own money. And they're going to go to a concert where Lil Pump was there. And they're going to say like that was fun.
And I just hope that boy took this time to actually write some lyrics and create some stuff. And it's like, bro, you had all this time and you do shit. That's where you fucked up.
But even if he doesn't, financially, I think he'll be just fine. And I think that's what's important. I mean, because if you look at where that kid came from, he was like a poor Colombian kid from Miami who was like not doing well in school and constantly getting in trouble with the law and stuff. This is infinitely better. Yeah, I know. But this is infinitely better than any kind of jail time he would otherwise have gotten, where he just gets to be free to do whatever he wants legally.
So he just gets to bypass the aspect of getting your prison tattoos on your face, and he just was like, you know what? I'm not going to go to prison at the moment. I'm just going to get those prison tattoos.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as he doesn't break the law any further, I think he did get in trouble, like had some drugs or whatever. But if he's stuck in one place right now and he put away his money, like I imagine J. Cole coached him on to put away his money properly, I think he'll be fine.
After that song, be like, hey, young buck, stop buying all the shit. You're probably not going to have longevity. Invest your money.
And honestly, I'm sure he did, because if anybody's going to like tell him the right thing to do, it's J. Cole. So I don't see that as a negative thing overall, because what is the purpose is for him to be authentic as possible, and for him
to learn.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure, but for him to learn and be as authentic as possible, because it's hard to learn if you're not being yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Plus, I mean, it's nice when you have that elder statesman that's like, all right, man, I'm going to kind of help bring you on the wing. I'm like, I see this is where you're going. Maybe you have potential, but like, I want to help, with that longevity or to smooth out the transition.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what was your L squared? What were you trying to get into the comics? 'Cause I know you were playing something right before we started.
Yeah, so I've been kind of focused on like where the comic book industry is going because it's kind of
we talked
upside
about this
down
a little
right
while
now.
ago.
Yeah. So
Like the brick and mortar stores, a lot of them being shut down, or
yes, exactly. So DC has kind of, how do I describe this? Disconnected all ties with the main publishing monopoly for comic books. There's this one printing
right? Because
corporation.
I think we got into a little bit about that. I
Yeah,
remember.
exactly. So there's one printing distribution, that's Diamond Comics, and because of the pandemic, they had to shut down entirely.
And
So
they're out of Jersey or on the East Coast.
I don't know exactly. They're across the entire country because they're the only one, and they have multiple
Yeah,
printing.
I think they were somewhere in like New York or New Jersey.
I
And
don't
I
know.
believe.
I don't know at all.
Speculation.
Yeah. Anyway, let me describe the picture.
Yeah,
first.
sorry.
So essentially, they're the only ones. They stopped producing for about 2 months, and all the comic book stores went all in hell trying to figure out how to pay rent, how to make sales, and how to do something. So all these comic book stores are trying to figure out the best way to make money for themselves. Are you breathing hard?
Oh, my bad. Just lean back in my chair.
Okay. So because they're trying to figure out how to make money and all that kind of stuff, they have to innovate and change things around. And DC in the past couple of weeks has made the decision that they will no longer distribute their comic books via Diamond Comic Books, and they're going to only distribute their comic books via Midtown Comics, the New York-based comic book store that has their own distribution program where they can sell comic books across the country. And DC has decided they're going to exclusively sell their comic books through there. And that is a big wave because either you're going to, as a comic book store owner, if you want the character Batman, and think about how important this is. If you want just the character Batman, you're going to have to exclusively buy comic books through Midtown Comics in New York.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you're going to have to share your sales data so that any other DC comics that you would want to buy, we could directly cater them to the market and where your comic book store is. And that like insulates them from having to take any risk in terms of what kind of characters that they want to put out.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a huge disparity in like how people are reacting to it, and most of it is negative because of the
as people do.
Yeah, exactly. So the disparity is further in the side of, well, what are we going to do? Because we're not going to be able to sell Batman. So some comic book stores are going as extreme as, we're just not going to sell DC stuff anymore.
Wow.
Like, we're just not going to have Batman. We're not going to have Superman. We're not going to have all these characters because you know what? Forget about it. My main distributor is Diamond, and Diamond is like the only one. They've been a monopoly for the past, I think, 20 years. They've been a monopoly. Because back in the big bust in the 90s, then all the printing shops went bankrupt, and they got all bought up by one big company, and that was Diamond. And Diamond, I'm very familiar with Diamond because that's where I would build my pull lists whenever I would go to the comic book store when I was buying a lot of books back in the day. Because I would like, all right, well, what's coming out this week? Let me find out what's coming, and then let me see if I can make sure that my comic book store owner makes sure they buy the books that I want them to get. Because they can order individual copies of books from Diamond because they can distribute at all levels. It's just, bulk shipping is definitely cheaper. And then they'd have these reward programs for like variant covers and all that kind of stuff. So it was, when you're a monopoly, you end up starting to play these games with your people, your customers, because you have to figure out the best way for you to make money, and you're the only game in town. So whatever the best way for you to make money might just be making it ridiculous for all the people that are in business with you. And that's an inherent problem with having a monopoly like that. So what ended up happening is that DC pulled out, and they were just like, you know what? Let's see what happens if we do all of our stuff via digital app on the DC Universe app, because we have invaluable data on the people that are reading comic books. Like for you, for example, what comic books did you read at all on the DC Universe app?
Predominantly, the only ones I was really reading were all Green Lantern and like the Green Lantern or Green Lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
As a story, I think as a comic book, I enjoy him for the the kind of the, let's describe it. The character development and thought process because of a universal police force or a galactic police force.
Mm-hmm.
And because my dad being law enforcement, and me always kind of wanted to get law enforcement, so obviously I'm more to invest in that aspect. So those type of stories,
yeah, that's
I
absolutely
enjoy. And you some of those stories you can even tie to like things going on now with police brutality, and I think some of those things get written in. Is those guys, you want to talk about police brutality and ultimate power?
Yeah, no,
they're
so powerful.
They're almost more like a Judge Dredd of judge, jury, and executioner. Well, maybe not so much executioner, but like what they deemed you're doing wrong, or just the fact that they could abuse their power, which they have, because you had Sinestro, who basically became the warlord of his planet because he thought he was protecting them and providing justice and security, and in reality, he became a warlord of power. And if you did not, subdue to his power and his rule, well, then you were an enemy of the state, and I'm just gonna have to get rid of you.
That's a really interesting concept, just because of, you're absolutely right, especially with what we're dealing with right now, just in terms of, like, what does it mean if you just bring it back to its just basic concepts of fear and willpower?
Yeah.
What you want is people to have the will to control themselves when they have power. And also you want the rest of the people to have free will in and of itself. And Sinestro with the Yellow Lantern ring is all about fear. And that fear absolutely corrupts everything, because like with a lot of fear, then you can't move forward and to do things as freely as you want to be, and that reduces any kind of freedom.
Yeah, and I think it's been 16, so 4 years since I graduated college. And the one thing from sociology that I think is probably the most thing that's like stuck in my head is that the one phrase that absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Oh, no doubt.
And I've taken that and applied it to so much different aspects of life. But especially with those books, with the Green Lantern books, you see the absolute power of the Guardians. And when they feel that maybe things aren't working their way, they're like, we're just going to get rid of all of them. And they have this coup to kill all the Lanterns. And it's up to some of the Lanterns to basically fight them back. And, there's a full story arc of the first Lantern and trying to use the Manhunters, and we're going to wipe you away, and the fight, in the revolution of fighting for justice and what's actually right. And, even, knowing that if you're going back to police officers and, some bad apples and some people make mistakes, is Hal Jordan is the perfect example of that, of a man who's made mistakes in his past, who's fallen, who's been redeemed, who's been kind of morally gray, but always trying to do the right thing. But sometimes doing the right thing is a different perspective in him than, say, someone like Jon Stewart, who I was always a big fan of as well. Because I always felt like Jon Stewart as a character was way more level-minded, because he had been a man through war in the Marines and was
his
now
own
operating
personal discipline.
Right. And also probably, dealing with the fact that he had built this moral structure and like self-discipline that I think worked so well for him as the Green Lantern, and utilizing. I think he did a little bit of the Indigo Tribe because some shit happened, but I forgot. But like he was just a good aspect. And then you have characters like Guy Gardner, who
that guy has no discipline at all.
No discipline, and you can equate that to certain officers that are just a little too aggressive, a little too hot-headed, and make way too rash decisions, which leads him into the Red Lanterns of anger.
Yep. And
using that to basically do basically whatever they want, because they're just like the epitome of rage. And so it's just very interesting, and this is all something I'm just kind of thinking of on the spot, but
Well, no, I
you know,
mean,
as we
it's
talk
all
about it,
there. Yeah.
it's been there, and I've been reading these books for God who knows how long, and it's just interesting how it relates to life and the reality of you have a bunch of apples. Some are kind of a little bit more on the brown side and not the greatest, you know, or maybe a little starchy, and some are a little too acidic, you know, and a little too tart. And then you have apples that are like, oh, it's pretty good, but you know what? That apple that was great in the first, you know, week or so is starting to kind of fade, and maybe it's time for that apple to take a leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that would be my readings predominantly of DC Comics and Batman. But
well, okay, of course, Batman, and I think that's really interesting because now I have a totally idea that like Green Lantern would have literally a perfect movie, like when summer movie season comes back, because like they could literally tackle all these issues and it'd be a beautiful thing. And
no, it'd be amazing.
It'd be wonderful, and everybody would love it, and they would all come together, and we'll all just kumbaya, and it'll be beautiful.
You are doing, you know. And I think we can get into that if we want to keep on the top comics. Is DC, and Warner Brothers and HBO Max creating, you know, a lot of these DC shows on HBO Max and doing the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, man.
And they're doing the Green Lantern series out there as well.
Yep.
Because I've been thinking about maybe canceling my DC membership and using that for maybe HBO Max, because you know a lot of their shows are going to HBO Max or they're going to other platforms, and they're taking forever to get basically new content. And like they just unleashed Justice League Dark Apocalypse, which as a consumer I'm like, okay, cool. Why wouldn't you release it on your web series, your whole web series? I
think they have it more planned out to be a digital reading service rather than. That's why I was considering. I was like, all right, well, I imagine they're tracking how much you read everything because they have all that data local on the app. And if they're doing that, then they probably understand like, oh, well, if we see a lot of people reading Green Lantern comic books on our DC app, maybe we need to figure out which DC like comic book series we want to base our next movie off of. And you could use that to generate like content that people want to see because you have data on what people want to see. I think everybody in the world is trying to figure out how valuable these internet app databases are going to end up being. I mean, and just as simple as that, it's like, all right, we know what the people want because that's true. We see them reading it. And obviously Batman, people love Batman, and they have some of the most powerful intellectual property in the world because of it moves people and they move their money, and that makes them money too.
Like if you could talk to say someone from like another planet comes down or a different universe that, you know, doesn't have comic books, and you're like, hey, they ask you who's like the most famous character of all literature.
Fucking Superman or Batman? Batman.
Superman, Batman.
It's Batman.
Or just Batman. I would just say Batman because everybody knows who Batman is. You know, and the TV shows, comic books, the movies, the games.
Yeah,
like
it's ubiquitous.
Batman is almost the ultimate character because he does have so many pitfalls, but then he's just I don't know. There's just something about Batman.
He has his own code. He has his own code.
There's something you love about him, and then
to
you're
a
like,
fault.
God damn it, Batman!
Kill the Joker. He's trash.
Why are you such an idiot? Like I love you, but god damn, you're a moron.
Exactly.
Like Jesus, Batman, stop being such an asshole.
But that's why you love him. That's what
let people
let people in. Just get married, settle down, and have a kid, and don't make it an asshole like Damien.
Yeah, like you've already won. Like settle down, relax a little bit, enjoy life. God. So what? Your parents died. You've
move on.
Them. Move on, but like you gotta grow. Utilize that anger. Like, how much anger do you have? I thought I was an angry kid, but you know what? I didn't hold on to anger for
he has
70 years.
He has the anger of, I was about to say, of every writer that's ever written about him. He has the anger of everybody. He represents like that thing for everyone. He represents.
What I want to know is, had he never become a Red Lantern?
Oh my God! Well, no, he could become a Yellow Lantern just as badly.
Which he did.
Yeah, exactly. For like
but
a
still.
minute and like a non-canon reason,
Yeah.
whatever. But even then, like looking back at the lanterns too, is just like what these characters represent. Like even the Orange Lantern, the greed. Yeah, what's mine? Their literal oath is what's mine is mine,
and mine is mine.
Exactly. And that's ridiculous.
And also, did I mention it's mine?
It's mine. And what that represents for people. I mean, these spectrums of the color, like you could play around with it, and how what's his name? Kyle Rayner is like the Rainbow Lantern, and he's an artist.
He's the White Lantern.
White Lantern. Light. Yeah, but pure light just means the reflection of all colors. I get the metaphor. Real smart, Jeff Johns. Got to do the finger guns because it's Jeff Johns. But Jeff Johns. I'm making comic books, guys. I'm trying to make movies, and they totally shut me out for Snyder. And they want the Snyder cut instead of me. That's a whole other thing. Whatever.
I want to see Snyder cut.
I don't, but to each their own.
You gotta let the man finish his job.
He had a tragic incident. Whatever. Like, he, like, lost his family. Like, I felt bad. Like, it made sense why it had to happen. But I don't need to see it.
You know what? I also really hope. I really don't want Homeboy who played Flash. Like, he's just, he's terrible.
Just meld the TV universe. Get what's his name,
Which
Grant
they
Gustin,
did,
a better check.
Dude, they already did it.
Well, then replace the Flash. I mean, I think DC has such a great opportunity to do so many things with their characters because they've done Crisis on Infinite Earths so many times. They've literally reinvented themselves.
TV series.
Well, that too. They did it in the TV series too. Like they're literally, the name of their game is reinventing yourself and doing something new. And I think what they're doing right now with taking away their stuff from Diamond and doing their own distribution and probably turning the DC Universe app into like a reading aggregation app where they just try to figure out what people like in terms of comics, and then they keep you along by leaving on the Batman animated series for the kids and stuff like that. I mean, I figured that would be the real benefit.
I would say it's probably for the adults, but yeah,
both.
I get you.
For people like your brother,
the adult kids.
Yeah, the people like your brother where they grew up on the stuff and they want to share it with their kids too. Like, it's the same. Like, I would want 100%. My kids to watch Batman the animated series instead of the trash that they have now. And the trash they have now is fine, but like, there's value in the hard work that was done in the past.
Yeah.
And except for the whole, like, Batwoman and Batman getting together, I think that just ruins my ego because I always see myself as Robin instead of Batman. But that's a whole nother
Interesting that you always see yourself as the number two.
No. The Robin is supposed to be the guy that, like, the ride-along character. It's like Jubilee in X-Men or Shadowcat, where, like, you're hanging out with the coolest guy in the world. In X-Men context, that's like Wolverine, where, like, Wolverine is hanging out. Yeah, no doubt. Psh, of course, Wolverine is the coolest.
What do you think? It's fucking Cyclops?
Yeah, exactly. Get out of here, man. He's a bit. No, anyway. But, like, it's literally the ride-along character. You get to, as the reader, you get to hang out with the coolest character in the book. So, which means you have these all these conversations are having through your eyes, as the reader of the comic book. And for me, I see myself as the kid. I was reading the book thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely Dick Grayson, and I'm getting with Batgirl." But, but in the freaking movie that came out, The Killing Joke, they changed it up. And I think that for me personally, I understand now as a more mature person why that is, and I understand like any female that would have been watching Batman would have seen themselves going after Batman, of course, because that makes sense. But
because he's a man and he has power.
Yeah, like why would you go after Dick Grayson when you can be with Batman?
And
I totally get it.
Clearly has father issues.
Absolutely, because she wants to be never mind. I'm not even gonna get deep into that one. That's a whole nother thing. Commissioner Gordon has a very interesting lifestyle where like he's split up with his wife. Read Batman Year One. It's fascinating. Good stuff.
Well, like a side note on that is, so a great and a funny interpretation of is the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah,
and
I haven't seen it yet.
It's actually pretty good. Like at first I was like, I don't know, but I was like, oh, it's actually it's pretty good, but it's very adult, which I was like,
Sure.
Oh, wow, okay. Did not expect that. But the dynamic and the relationship that they created with Gordon and Batman, where Gordon is like constantly seeking his approval and his love, And Batman's just like, yeah, that's not our relationship, Jim. Like, I'm sorry. and it shows, I think in season 2, when Gordon and Harvey Dent were actually, competitive buddies and friends,
Mm-hmm.
and then whatever happens with Gordon's life, but he becomes this shovel man. He's just like, Batman's constantly like, Gordon, get your shit together, because he's always like drunk. And he's just like a terrible cop. And
that's an
just,
interesting
like,
portrayal.
worthless.
Well, no,
And
I
just,
mean,
like, absolutely worthless.
why would you need Batman? Well, like, let's think about it logically. Why would you need Batman so bad if you were such a good police officer?
Oh, 100%.
Like, if you really had a handle over the crime in your city, like, you wouldn't need somebody like Batman to like go the extra mile with his billionaire services of being like an ultimate ninja warrior, like jumping around the skies with high-tech gear and weaponry.
Well, I mean, that's almost like the whole kind of the plot of the second series, or second season.
Yeah.
Is, there's something that happens and Batman's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the United I can't even talk.
Yeah.
The United States government basically annexed Gotham, and they're like, you're a sovereign state, we no longer claim you.
Oh, that
And
sounds
allowed-
like No Man's Land from the early
Yeah.
2000s or the late 90s.
Yeah, and basically it's been divided up. It's just like No Man's Land. So obviously it takes inspiration from that.
I love No Man's Land. It's a
And-
great book.
Basically Batman's just like recovering from like this last fight that he had with like Joker and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so the police force gets taken over, and it's not until his daughter becomes Batgirl.
Yep.
And she starts working with him, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna be a better cop. I'm gonna stop drinking. She's like, Dad, you have to stop. Okay, just one more sip. I am a goddamn good cop.
I'm a good cop. I promise you.
And then everyone's just like, Jim, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, just leave it alone. We get it.
Yeah.
I mean-
so it's interesting. It's a very adult show, but it's just funny seeing Gordon in that, painting that light. We're like, okay, because you just see the hypocrisy of all that.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
If like you were such a good cop, or if your system was doing so well, you wouldn't need this vigilante guy to wrangle up all these crazies. Like,
Yeah.
why is your police force so shitty?
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's corrupt, and I get that. But why are you so shitty at your guys' job that you can't keep people behind bars or in a insane asylum? Like, why do these people keep escaping? What the fuck?
I mean, I think that's a perfect analogy for United States now, is that, like, all right, let's think about it this way. Why do we need all these police officers to have these military gear and all this kind of stuff? Like, what is the reason why these things keep on happening? And, like, the thing that comes to my mind is literally the war on drugs that happened in the 70s with Nixon and all that kind of
Right.
stuff, just being the wrong way to attack a healthcare issue and criminalizing things.
and also I would equate it to a mental health issue.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, that's just as much your healthcare as anything else. I mean,
Oh, well, yeah, it's your mental health.
because I mean, you had the soldiers coming back from Vietnam. You still had issues with like poverty and like these urban centers and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, all right, well, what is the best way to improve this situation?
Well, I mean, if you want to get into nitty gritty, and it's not even conspiracy theory because
Nah.
it's actual facts.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the reason for the war on drugs was basically because you had African Americans, Hispanic people,
Hippies.
hippies were all starting to have this. You're coming out of a time of your nucleus family where everybody listens to the government. You had the Red Scare, Big Brother.
It was the
and you
60s.
start-
there had been riots
Yeah.
throughout the entire decade of the
Yeah,
1960s.
because you're basically seeing revolt and enlightenment in this time period of people stepping away from organized government and that we've had for the last, we'll say, 200 years or whatever it's been. And now we're starting to be able to think for ourselves a little bit.
Yep.
People are kind of experimenting with drugs, having different ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and the government sees as, oh, our population is slipping from what we had as this ultimate power over people. right?
Except for instead of taking this idea and saying, all right, we need to make a path for people to be responsible for themselves. And instead of telling people to be responsible for themselves, we said, no, you are not fit to take responsibility for your body, and they took away your freedom.
Yes, and so basically, now that people are getting nice ideas, certain laws were enacted, war on drugs, were basically to target. So there was, with the, what is the goddamn thing? It's the hierarchy of drugs. I'm so spacey right now on the name of it. Like
the
all
Schedule
your
1.
stages. Schedules, yeah.
Yeah.
It's because they really didn't have anything in the 60s. And then I think it's probably Nixon that came up with it. But basically that linked in marijuana, it's still Scheduled 1.
Yeah.
Mushrooms, hallucinogens, basically the things that are gonna, even though they weren't the most dangerous to the body, the most dangerous to the mind and for thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because it allowed you, and so that is what I believe why they're Scheduled 1 is because your ability, and since I've done some of these, substances.
Yeah, of course. You're responsible for your own body because you're an individual that lives in the United States of America and you deserve freedom. But
yeah.
Forgive me, I'm getting on my soapbox.
Yeah, but and so what's the easiest way? We'll make pot illegal. And who smokes a lot of pot? Hippies
and black people,
the black community, Hispanic community.
Yep.
Okay, and now we're gonna deem it as these are monsters. This is bad. We're gonna create this negative image. We're gonna stop this influx of people thinking, and then, you go into the 80s where you get it with the government, the contraband scandal, or the ironic Contra, where we're fucking bringing in coke to the states,
which is just a way for people to pay for the weapons that they sold. It's literally just like all this. It's a high level money.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's a racket. It's literally a racket. It was a racket.
And they're like, okay. So I mean, we can go down the deep rabbit hole, but I think that's a podcast for another day.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why you have issues with people and why things are illicit and why we have a problem is you started flooding the market with drugs, and then you started throwing people in prison and jail for drugs that really didn't have an issue, and so now
what do you sow?
Yeah, you basically create a community of people of, not being able to get in and out of prison, or not being able to get out of prison, people being in prison, being locked away, because there's still parts in the U.S. that if you get caught with, like, fucking an eighth of weed, they're going to fucking send you to 6 months in jail. Mm-hmm. And it's like, for what? Mm-hmm. What did I do? But it's that, that power struggle. And
yeah. And who has the responsibility over your body?
Yeah, and I have some pretty strong viewpoints because, I learned a lot of this stuff in sociology and things that we went through.
And not everybody gets the opportunity to learn it.
No, and really understanding and get to that critical thinking of why do we have so much of an issue within society with, either minorities in and out of prison or such of a drug issue with our culture, and why is that an issue? Well, it's an issue because you can't control people, and they are losing that ability to control, and that absolute power of, if we can't control everybody, instead of having more of a, and it's not to say that I want all drugs made legal, because I don't think
at least make them regulated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want meth to just everyone could just get meth because that's I think the worst thing you do to your body.
Your local meth store.
Yeah, but like with heroin, if you created some type of clinics, and you have methadone clinics, but
well, yeah, because people are taking heroin anyway, and those Oxycontins and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's literally the same.
So if you could go to a place and like, I would, I want to purchase it, and you're like, cool, but it's regulated, and we're not putting fentanyl, and we're gonna put it at a price, and you kind of start destroying that black market aspect. Slowly but surely, not overnight.
I'll describe the reason why they need fentanyl in the first place. It's literally about how much product or how much potency of your product can you move in one shipment. And the idea was that, well, if we make a more concentrated version of the drug, we can literally move more units that can make more money, because the more concentrated the product is, the more we could use it. That's the reason why cocaine became a big deal in the first place, is that...
Well, yeah, but that has nothing to do with fentanyl.
No. The reason why they made it...
with fentanyl.
Well, no, the reason why they made fentanyl in the first place, it's not even
It's cheap.
well, it's no, you can get higher profit from it, because it's more concentrated.
Yeah, but you never know. It fucking kills your
well, no,
clients.
exactly, because of its concentration level, it'll kill. So you have to cut it a lot. And the idea is that if I'm making a product, and like for example, if I'm selling weed and I want to sell high quantities of weed, because of the nature of weed, it's really bulky when you have like a pound of weed. Like it takes up a lot of space.
Yeah. If you ain't never seen a pound of weed, that's a lot of weed.
So when I'm
'Cause
moving,
weed does not weigh a lot.
if I'm in the black market and I'm trying to make the most money for the amount of product I move at a time, then I'm gonna want something that's less bulky. And then you can move something to like cocaine. Well, you can move a couple of kilos of cocaine. And then on top of that, it's like, oh, how about I just move this other drug? It has a totally different purpose, but they created it so that they could move their stuff even faster from China and overseas over here where they manufacture a lot of these drugs. I could just intercept that same manufacturing and illegally pump it into the United States and then just have the drug dealers cut it when they get there. Because my only responsibility is to move the raw product.
Yeah. It's a hell of a thing.
It's awful. It's crazy. I mean, and it's literally just like, okay, if you were acting in a restricted business environment and there's zero regulation from the government, what are you going to do to make the most money possible?
Yeah.
And if you just
100%.
think about it, super matter-of-fact like that, that's what it is. It's like, how do I move the most money possible? Because if you look at like drugs, people have been using drugs forever.
Yeah, obviously.
Like it's not like
every
weed
culture.
just magically appeared in the 1940s and it was like, what's reefer? What's that? Oh my god!
Well, it's like, no, we were growing hemp and fucking crops and shit. Yeah, it was a cash crop during the
Exactly.
like not the revolution. Well, yeah, during the revolution.
Yeah, and the Spanish brought it over in the colonies when they came over to the Americas, because they were growing tobacco here and they brought tobacco to the old world, because tobacco didn't exist in the old world before the Spanish came to the Americas.
Yeah.
And like they brought their smoking thing and they got the American old smoking thing. So it was just like a trading of ideas. The Columbian Exchange was a huge change in the world, and one of those things that like moved around was drugs. People were using morphine in Victorian London to
Oh my God.
deal with
Dude,
aches
I
and
mean,
pains.
Fucking Sherlock Holmes was like addicted to cocaine.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
he was using cocaine to get off his addiction of morphine.
And morphine
Because
was
that's
another
what makes
problem.
What was it?
Well, morphine was a whole nother problem because
Oh, yeah,
morphine
yeah.
was the same reason why the British took over Hong Kong in the first place.
Dude, I had a friend who did, I forget what he did, but he did something serious where he was in like a big accident. And they gave him a morphine drip. And he's like, it was the most amazing euphoric experience of my entire life.
Yeah, man.
Because I literally could just hit a button and it'd be like, oh, yeah. And you're like, oh, I can see why people get addicted.
Well, I mean, not only just like emotionally like addicted, but like physically addicted to it too, just because of the chemical compound. Like your body sees itself and is like, oh, I need this stuff. I need it now.
Because your
It's
dopamine
dangerous.
receptors are just going through the roof.
Yeah, man. Have you seen the Ray Charles movie with Jamie Foxx, Ray?
A long time ago. I haven't seen enough to like fully remember most of the movie.
There's a scene
But
in
I
the
have
movie
seen the movie.
when he takes heroin for the first time. And
Good
he
times.
describes it as better than sex. And he was like,
Yeah.
nah, man, ain't nothing better than sex. And he was like, try this. And then he did heroin for the first time. And he was like, literally in the next couple of scenes, he describes it to all the girls he's trying to get onto heroin. It's like, it's better than sex. And it's like the cinematography and the idea that this blind person has to describe the feeling of this intoxicant.
Oh, can you even imagine
I
just
can't.
being on heroin and being blind?
I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
That's so
it's like,
crazy.
obviously, you can't see. You're like, so all your heights are like just so like elevated. You're like, trust me, I feel a lot of things. And this shit feels great.
Exactly. But yeah, man. So we just solved the drug war, and cops. Yeah. We solve cops. Read a fucking comic book.
Yeah, solved it.
I think
it's already been solved, and we just brought it back to life.
We just fucking did it. We're the best.
Yeah, 100%. because obviously all our things are delved in science.
We're
and
experts.
Logic. Definitely a professor in all of this. And I take full responsibility for everything I say, and and I totally stand by everything because everything is a full thought out idea and not off the top of the dome. And
because you are the universe, and you have all of the intelligence of the world in your brain.
I am the Spectre. I see everything and can do no wrong.
All right. On that note, praise be to you. Thank you for your ever-ending knowledge.
Appreciate it. Thank you for admitting that. I appreciate it.
Oh man. All right, buddy. And I'm gonna.
Now everybody used to tell me go to school. Down what I was doing, they treat me like a fool. I've always been a cool cat, even when I had no friends. You see, I dreaded MBF and lived it up on the weekends. I wasn't freaking them Thursday nights, right? Had to get up in the morning. No time for nightlife. Full schedule of classes and work after that. Used to jerk on my dick cause I had no time to mac. I knew I couldn't be a college MC. Man, I want this world acknowledging me. And that starts today. Mark the way I say my words in the textbook. I could write an essay, but if you gave me less than an A, knew you weren't fucking with the way that I think. I'd rather travel the globe than study to be a shrink or a lawyer or a doctor. Man, that's proper, but it's not me. I got to be